Now let's talk about the war in Gaza. Is Israel ready for a peace deal? Over the weekend, Joe Biden claimed that they are, and he released a plan. Apparently, it was proposed by the Israelis themselves, this peace plan. Biden says it was proposed by Israel. He posted it on social media. This is the post we're talking about. It describes a three-phase plan. Phase 1, Israel promises a ceasefire in exchange for some hostages and a partial troop withdrawal from the densely populated parts of Gaza. In Phase 2, a full withdrawal by Israel in exchange for all the hostages held by Hamas. And in Phase 3, stabilization and reconstruction, where Israel will support the rebuilding efforts in Gaza. Apparently, this plan has been relayed to Hamas by Qatar, which is not surprising because throughout this conflict, Qatar and Egypt have been playing mediators.
Now, after intensive diplomacy carried out by my team, my many conversations with leaders of Israel, Qatar, and Egypt, and other Middle Eastern countries, Israel has offered a comprehensive new proposal. It's a roadmap to an enduring ceasefire and the release of all hostages.
A permanent and enduring ceasefire. If Biden is to be believed, this offer was made by Israel. But today, Netanyahu appeared to be shifting the goalpost. He said Israel has some preconditions, something that Joe Biden failed to disclose.
We have maintained the goals of the war, and primarily the elimination of Hamas. We insist that we complete both.
So is the peace plan DOA dead on arrival? The U.S. has not given up. Washington says it is waiting for a response from Hamas. Behind the scenes, hectic diplomacy is underway. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is making phone calls. He has spoken to two Israeli leaders, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant and opposition leader Benny Gantz. That's Netanyahu's main rival and a key member of Israel's war cabinet. Reports say Blinken is lobbying these leaders for a ceasefire. If it works out, there'll be a pause in fighting for 6 weeks, and that is when Israel and Hamas could negotiate a permanent truce.
This was an Israeli proposal. We have every expectation that if Hamas agrees to the proposal, as was transmitted to them, an Israeli proposal, that Israel would say yes.
They expect Israel to say yes. So America cannot guarantee the outcome. Now, this plan faces significant roadblocks and strong opposition. For starters, Netanyahu's allies are not on board. Specifically, two cabinet ministers, Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich. Two far-right politicians whose support is critical for Netanyahu to remain in power. Both leaders also hold important portfolios. Ben-Gvir is Israel's national security minister and Smotrich is the finance minister. They're said to be opposed to the ceasefire and they're threatening to quit the government over it. So Netanyahu has been put on notice. His coalition could collapse if he goes with the American ceasefire plan. Plus, he's at odds with his defense minister, Yoav Gallant, over the post-war plan for Gaza. Last month, Gallant made a demand. He said Israel should not rule over the Gaza Strip, and he wanted a public assurance from the Prime Minister on this.
In parallel to this important military operation, the security establishment, under my instructions, is preparing the governing alternative to Hamas, while we will isolate areas, remove Hamas operatives from these areas and introduce other forces that will enable an alternative government that will also threaten Hamas.
An alternative to the Hamas in Gaza. That's what Gallant wants. The Prime Minister has been non-committal. The Defense Minister says his team is already working on it. But this is fundamentally at odds with Biden's plan because he wants them to negotiate with the Hamas, to coexist with them. So here's what we have. There's a peace plan on the table. The European Commission supports it. Regional powers like Egypt and Qatar also support it. America says the plan is Israel's idea, but Israel is clearly divided about it. And we've not even heard from Hamas, which unfortunately can influence how this goes. In other words, this is a peace plan that is still up in the air. Confused by the barrage of numbers, deafened by the chorus of experts, disoriented by the flying graphics. Don't worry, we've got you covered. On Firstpost, we're keeping things simple. The most important seats, the high-profile candidates, and the most lucid analysis. As India counts its votes, tune in to Firstpost. Catch our live coverage on June 4th on all our platforms. Also, the special edition of Vantage.